Behind the awards, sold-out arenas, and screaming fans, Hollywood hides a brutal truth. Fame can isolate a star faster than it saves them. A golden statuette cannot heal chronic pain, and global worship cannot stop a desperate icon from searching for one final escape. In this archive from Hollywood's Stars and Scars, we examine one of the most devastating Hollywood scandals in history, not as cheap gossip, but as a chilling indictment of an industry that often turns human suffering into profit. This is the ultimate price of fame, leading to one haunting question. How could a beloved superstar collapse in his own apartment, beg someone not to leave him alone, and still be treated as a spectacle instead of a life worth saving? Behind the glitter, the scars remain. Welcome to Hollywood Stars and Scars. Number 20. Errol Flynn. Before the headlines turned dark, Errol Flynn was the undisputed king of Hollywood adventure. He was the ultimate swashbuckler, a charismatic leading man who projected invincibility on screen. Audiences saw a hero. The studios saw a gold mine. But behind the glamorous premieres and the reckless charm, the reality was entirely different. The man who commanded galleons and outfenced villains was quietly losing a much more intimate battle when the cameras stopped rolling. The turning point wasn't a single explosive event, but a slow, devastating descent. Flynn entered a destructive dependency cycle that would eventually rank him among the most severe addiction cases in Hollywood history. Behind closed doors, the immense pressure of fame collided with an unrestrained lifestyle. Warning signs were systematically dismissed. Whispers of a serious health crisis were covered up by studio fixers. By the late 1950s, the invincible action star could no longer mask the physical toll of his private choices. The destructive habits took full control, replacing his athletic prime with a rapid physiological decline. Official accounts described a tragic final chapter. Flynn passed away prematurely, at age 50, his body completely failing after decades of excess. Medical reports noted severe, irreversible damage. Today, his legacy is a jarring split screen, the pioneer of Golden Age action cinema, and a definitive, sobering cautionary tale of the studio era. It remains a stark reminder that immense star power cannot outrun a relentless dependency. A cinematic legend brought down by battles he couldn't win off-screen. But what happens when the next star looks at this history and believes they are the exception to the rule? Number 19. Jeff Conaway. Before the headlines faded, Jeff Conaway was the definition of 1970s Hollywood cool. Famous for his role as the swaggering Kenickie in the global blockbuster Grease, and a charismatic rising star on the hit sitcom Taxi, he projected boundless energy. Audiences loved his rebellious charm. Studios saw a versatile leading man. But that vibrant prime stood in devastating contrast to the reality developing just off camera, where a hidden physical toll was quietly beginning to dictate his future. The turning point wasn't a sudden crash, but a slow, decades-long derailment. It reportedly began with a physical injury sustained on the set of Grease. What started as standard pain management slowly evolved into a destructive dependency cycle. For years, the industry watched as missed opportunities piled up. Warning signs were ignored until they were broadcast to the world literally, when his attempts at finding help were televised, exposing a serious health crisis to millions. The crucial decision that changed everything wasn't made in a day, but over years of allowing temporary relief to eclipse his career and personal stability. Official accounts described a tragic final chapter. In May 2011, medical reports confirmed his passing at age 60, following a severe hospitalization. The aftermath left fans and former castmates deeply shaken. His legacy transformed from a beloved teen icon into a somber reflection on the long-term impacts of unmanaged physical trauma. It proves that a single unresolved injury left unchecked can quietly rewrite a person's entire life. A momentary physical misstep on a movie set triggered a battle he fought until his final days. But what happens when a star's destructive cycle is hidden right in plain sight, protected by the very people employed to keep them functioning? Number 18. Dennis Quaid. Before the narrative shifted, Dennis Quaid was the quintessential American leading man of the 1980s. With a signature grin and boundless on-screen charisma, he anchored massive hits and projected total confidence. Audiences saw an unstoppable star. Executives saw a guaranteed box office draw. But behind the glossy magazine covers and blockbuster premieres, the immense pressure of A-list status was quietly fracturing that golden image. The turning point was a slow, invisible erosion. Throughout the decade, Quaid became trapped in a destructive dependency cycle, a notorious hallmark of the era's unrestrained Hollywood culture. What began as industry-standard partying escalated into a serious health crisis. The warning signs were masked by his continuous professional output, but behind the scenes, his life was spinning out of control. The pivotal moment arrived in 1990, not with a public scandal, but a private, devastating realization. Staring into the future, he recognized that his current trajectory was a direct path to a tragic final chapter, and a decision that changed everything had to be made. Official accounts described a rare Hollywood turnaround. Quaid actively sought treatment, stepping away from the spotlight to dismantle the habits that nearly cost him everything. The aftermath wasn't defined by ruin, but by absolute reconstruction. Decades later, his career rebounded with remarkable longevity, standing as a testament to personal accountability. His journey remains a powerful reminder that while the industry's pressures are relentless, rewriting a seemingly predetermined fate is entirely possible. A golden boy actor who stared into the abyss and actively chose to walk away. But what happens when the warning signs are clearly documented, yet a star still speeds past the point of no return? Number 17. Robin Williams. Before the devastating news broke, Robin Williams was globally recognized as a brilliant comedic force and an Academy Award-winning actor. Known for his lightning-fast improvisation, he brought joy to millions. Audiences saw an unstoppable entertainer. The industry saw a once-in-a-generation talent. But beneath that manic, brilliant exterior, a profoundly different reality was quietly taking shape, creating a heartbreaking contrast between the man who made the world laugh and the silent battles he fought off-camera. The turning point was a deeply private, escalating health crisis. In his final years, Williams experienced a cascade of terrifying, unexplained physical and cognitive symptoms. Misdiagnoses and mounting anxiety compounded his reality. By mid-2014, despite seeking medical help, the internal pressure reached a critical mass. He was fighting a severe neurological decline that systematically stripped away his faculties. It resulted in a devastating turn, a tragic final chapter born from an invisible battle he could no longer navigate. Official accounts described a profound loss that halted the entertainment world. Following his passing in August 2014, investigators concluded there was no foul play. However, the autopsy report revealed a vital missing puzzle piece. Williams suffered from severe, undiagnosed Lewy body dementia. This aggressive brain disease finally explained the devastating symptoms of his final months. Today, his story fundamentally shifts how society views cognitive illness, serving as a solemn reminder that even the brightest minds can face unseen neurological wars. A beloved genius who fought a terrifying medical mystery entirely in the dark. But what happens when a star's destructive trajectory isn't a medical mystery, but a highly visible crisis that the industry simply chooses to ignore? Number 16. Gig Young. Gig Young was Hollywood's ultimate sophisticated charmer. An Academy Award-winning actor, he built a massive career playing the witty, affable leading man and sidekick in classic mid-century films. Audiences loved his effortless on-screen elegance. The studios relied on his bankable charm. But beneath the tuxedoed persona, a profound instability was taking root, creating a chilling divide between his glittering public successes and his private reality. The decline wasn't an overnight collapse, but a decades-long destructive dependency cycle. Behind the Hollywood accolades, his life was marked by fractured relationships and an escalating serious health crisis that the industry largely overlooked. The breaking point occurred in October 1978. What was supposed to be a new beginning with his fifth wife, married for barely 3 weeks, rapidly devolved into a devastating turn. Inside their New York City apartment, years of unaddressed personal demons culminated in a sudden, fatal encounter that left the entertainment world completely paralyzed. Official accounts described a tragic final chapter. Investigators concluded that Young was responsible for both their lives abruptly ending that day. Decades later, his prestigious Oscar-winning legacy is entirely overshadowed by this catastrophic final decision. It stands today as a grim historical record of how unchecked internal battles, shielded by the privileges of fame, can silently escalate into an irreversible tragedy. An acclaimed actor who masked his darkest struggles behind an award-winning smile until it was too late. But what happens when the warning signs aren't hidden behind a charismatic persona, but are broadcast on national television for everyone to see, yet nobody intervenes? The spotlight does not heal, it merely overexposes. Behind the studio gates, fame functions as an isolator, masking cognitive decline and unmanaged trauma behind a profitable smile. When an environment incentivizes performance over preservation, warning signs are frequently misclassified as mere eccentricities. A collapsing mind or a deteriorating body will eventually override any studio cover-up. The human architecture can only sustain untreated fractures for so long before structural failure becomes inevitable. But what happens when the destruction isn't concealed off-screen, but meticulously documented by the media itself? Number 15. Tallulah Bankhead. Before her name became synonymous with Hollywood excess, Tallulah Bankhead was a dominating force of theater and cinema. With her signature husky voice and unapologetic wit, she was a true Golden Age icon, delivering acclaimed performances in classics like Hitchcock's Lifeboat. Audiences saw a fearless, magnetic powerhouse who commanded every room. The press saw an endlessly entertaining headline. But beneath the glamorous, larger-than-life persona, a chaotic reality was taking root, establishing a chilling contrast between her undeniable brilliance and her private instability. The turning point wasn't a single, sudden crash, but a highly publicized, decades-long destructive dependency cycle. Bankhead lived with an absolute disregard for limits, transforming what began as rebellious charm into a serious health crisis. For years, the industry watched the warning signs accumulate: erratic behavior, missed cues, and a rapidly deteriorating physical state. Yet her immense talent often blinded the public to the severity of her condition. By the late 1960s, the years of unrestrained choices finally caught up to her. The pivotal moments weren't hidden. They were brushed off as eccentricities until her body simply could no longer sustain the punishing momentum. Official accounts described a tragic final chapter. In December 1968, medical reports confirmed her passing at age 66, her system completely failing from severe respiratory complications, compounded by a lifetime of physical neglect. Today, her legacy remains a striking split screen, a trailblazing titan of the American stage, and a sobering cautionary tale about the illusion of invincibility. It serves as a stark reminder that an unstoppable public image cannot protect against a fragile physical reality. A theatrical legend who treated life as an endless performance until the curtain abruptly fell. But what happens when the destructive cycle isn't flaunted as a glamorous lifestyle, but hidden behind closed doors until a devastating 911 call exposes the truth? Number 14. Montgomery Clift. Before the devastating turning point, Montgomery Clift was Hollywood's most breathtakingly handsome enigma. A 4-time Academy Award nominee, he rivaled Marlon Brando as the brooding, intensely talented pioneer of method acting. Audiences were mesmerized by his flawless features and undeniable on-screen magnetism. Studios saw a highly bankable prestige leading man. At his absolute peak, Clift projected a captivating perfection, securing a pristine public image that made his impending violent descent even more tragic. The turning point wasn't a slow fade, but a sudden catastrophic shatter. In May 1956, while leaving a lavish Hollywood party, Clift suffered a devastating car crash that destroyed his famously perfect face. What followed behind closed doors was a chaotic blur of emergency reconstructive surgeries and a PR team in absolute panic, desperate to conceal the damage from the press. Industry insiders claimed the severe physical trauma triggered a deeper psychological collapse. Trapped in chronic pain, Clift spiraled into a destructive dependency cycle. The once immaculate star returned to the screen visibly altered, forced to act through a mask of visible trauma, while tabloids relentlessly scrutinized his changing appearance. The aftermath was a grueling public decline historically dubbed by Hollywood as the longest, slowest collapse in showbiz history. Though his raw, brilliant talent remained, the industry slowly marginalized him. By 1966, a severe health crisis claimed his life at just 45. The tragedy of Montgomery Clift stands today as a chilling testament to the fragility of fame, proving how violently a single twist of fate can dismantle an untouchable golden boy. A flawless idol permanently broken by a single, catastrophic collision. But what happens when the destruction of a pristine public image isn't caused by a tragic accident, but by an irreversible, disastrous, cosmetic decision driven by the relentless pressure to stay young? Number 13. Michael Jackson. Before the tabloids rewrote his legacy, Michael Jackson was the undisputed king of pop, a singular force who fundamentally redefined global entertainment. With record-shattering albums and gravity-defying performances, he achieved an unprecedented level of peak fame. Audiences saw a musical messiah. Executives saw a billion-dollar empire. At his zenith, his public image was pure magic, creating a glittering, untouchable facade that made his eventual highly publicized unraveling almost impossible to comprehend. The turning point wasn't a sudden fall, but a complex, decades-long spiral meticulously documented by an unforgiving press. Behind the iron gates of his sprawling estate, a very different reality was taking shape. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, a series of devastating PR crises, irreversible cosmetic decisions, and severe legal battles began to fracture his empire. Industry insiders claimed the immense pressure of sustaining his own myth drove him into deep isolation. As court documents leaked and PR teams scrambled in absolute panic, his once invincible image was systematically dismantled by a destructive cycle of fame and microscopic media scrutiny. The tragic final chapter culminated in June 2009, when a serious health crisis resulted in his sudden passing, temporarily breaking the internet and shocking the globe. Official accounts described a physical system completely overwhelmed by an unmanaged, complex medical dependency. Today, his estate continues to generate billions, but his legacy remains permanently polarized, an immortal musical genius shadowed by profound personal turmoil. It stands as the ultimate chilling testament to the isolating, often fatal consequences of unparalleled global surveillance. A musical titan who conquered the world, only to become a prisoner within his own meticulously crafted empire. But what happens when a star's ultimate downfall isn't aggressively broadcast across global tabloids, but hidden in plain sight, protected by a silent industry entirely complicit in their destruction? Number 12. Elizabeth Taylor. For decades, the name Elizabeth Taylor didn't just represent stardom, it defined the absolute pinnacle of Hollywood royalty. Evolving from a beloved child idol into a two-time Academy Award-winning titan, she commanded million-dollar contracts. Audiences worshipped an untouchable goddess of glamour. The industry banked on a relentless media obsession. She projected an imperial, flawless facade that made the chaotic reality brewing behind her estate gates feel entirely unimaginable. The illusion of perfection fractured through a highly publicized, decades-long destructive cycle of fame. Behind the blinding paparazzi flashes, her private life became a battleground of severe health crises and devastating PR disasters. Industry insiders claimed the physical toll of her grueling studio years, combined with the immense pressure of global scrutiny, pushed her into a profound, hidden medical dependency. As scandalous affairs leaked to tabloids and emergency hospitalizations mounted, her management teams worked in perpetual panic. What the public romanticized as a glamorous lifestyle was actually an exhausting fight for survival within a highly enabling industry. Official accounts ultimately confirmed the staggering physical and emotional cost of her unprecedented fame. Though she bravely pivoted to groundbreaking philanthropy later in life, the relentless tabloid machine had already overshadowed her cinematic legacy with her complex medical and personal turmoil. Her story remains a breathtaking yet sobering reflection on the brutal, often irreversible toll of a life manufactured entirely for public consumption. An untouchable queen of cinema, whose golden reign masked a grueling, lifelong fight to survive the spotlight. But what happens when a flawless public image isn't eroded by time, but instantly obliterated by an irreversible cosmetic decision, driven by the industry's ruthless obsession with youth? Number 11. Cary Grant. To the global public, Cary Grant wasn't just a movie star. He was the ultimate blueprint of manufactured perfection. With his tailored suits and effortless transatlantic charm, he was the industry's most bankable romantic lead. Audiences idolized an eternally suave gentleman. Studio executives profited from an immaculate brand. He achieved a breathtaking peak fame, projecting a golden, untouchable facade that made the profound psychological fractures hidden beneath it all the more jarring. The illusion of this perfect gentleman masked a desperate, lifelong fight. Behind closed doors, the man-born Archie Leach was trapped in a destructive cycle of fame, struggling to sustain the very icon he had created. The crisis didn't explode in a singular scandal, but simmered as a hidden life exposed only to his closest confidants. By the late 1950s, industry insiders claimed that a string of failed marriages and crushing identity crises pushed him toward controversial, intensive psychological therapies. While his PR team worked relentlessly to project total control to the tabloids, he was privately undergoing radical, experimental medical treatments just to survive the crushing weight of his own reflection. Ultimately, the sheer exhaustion of playing Cary Grant forced an early, definitive retirement from the silver screen. Reports stated that while he avoided being blacklisted, the personal cost of his fame was a deeply polarized existence, marked by emotional isolation. His story stands today as a chilling reminder that the pursuit of absolute cinematic perfection can quietly consume the real person underneath the polish. An immaculate Hollywood king who spent a lifetime held hostage by his own legendary reflection. But what happens when a star's carefully guarded secrets aren't buried in a quiet retirement, but violently exposed through a devastating PR crisis that forces the whole world to watch their empire burn? An archive of fame is often just a catalog of prolonged survival. From a behavioral standpoint, when an industry demands relentless perfection, critical distress signals are routinely misfiled as artistic temperament. The human psyche cannot indefinitely bridge the chasm between a manufactured golden idol and a deteriorating reality. Unchecked isolation and chronic pressure do not build resilience. They guarantee a structural collapse. These historical files reveal the brutal tax of living entirely for public consumption. But what happens when the carefully constructed illusion becomes the exact mechanism of a star's demise? Number 10. John Belushi. At the dawn of the 1980s, no one wielded comedic power quite like John Belushi. Transitioning from a late-night television breakout to a global blockbuster phenomenon, he commanded absolute supremacy. Audiences worshipped a legendary high-energy renegade. Studio executives banked on an unstoppable million-dollar force. He possessed a level of peak fame so electric, it forged an untouchable public image that perfectly concealed the profound instability brewing just off camera. The inevitable collapse was a deeply ingrained, destructive cycle of fame. Behind the velvet ropes of Hollywood VIP rooms, his private life devolved into a severe, unmanaged health crisis. Throughout early 1982, glaring warning signs were systematically ignored by an enabling entourage that prioritized lucrative production schedules over his actual survival. As his increasingly erratic behavior leaked to the tabloids, his PR team scrambled in absolute panic, desperate to maintain the illusion. The immense pressure of sustaining his larger-than-life, chaotic persona eventually triggered a devastating turn, irrevocably shattering the glittering facade. Official accounts described a tragic final chapter inside a secluded bungalow at the Chateau Marmont. In March 1982, the entertainment industry was completely paralyzed by his sudden passing at just 33. The grim aftermath forced Hollywood into an uncomfortable reckoning, exposing a ruthless machine that eagerly profited from his chaos until the very end. His story stands today as a sobering reminder that immense talent cannot outrun the fatal consequences of a highly enabling industry. A brilliant renegade, ultimately consumed by the establishment that applauded his destruction. But what happens when a star's ultimate downfall isn't fueled by a volatile lifestyle, but by a highly publicized, irreversible cosmetic decision that permanently mutilates a golden image? Number 9. Chris Farley. To fully grasp the sheer magnitude of the loss, you have to look at the absolute dominance of the phenomenon. Throughout the mid-1990s, Chris Farley wasn't just a beloved actor. He was an unstoppable comedic hurricane. Surging from a late-night television sensation to a fiercely bankable blockbuster leading man, he possessed an explosive golden charisma that studios eagerly monetized. Audiences worshipped a hyper-energetic, flawless icon of joy, creating a towering peak of fame that completely masked the exhausting, dangerous toll required to endlessly maintain that larger-than-life facade. The devastating turn occurred not in a single violent moment, but through a grueling, highly publicized, destructive cycle of fame. Behind the roaring laughter and glittering blockbuster premieres, a hidden life exposed a severe, escalating health crisis. Industry insiders claimed the suffocating pressure to constantly perform his physical, chaotic persona drove him into a profoundly dark isolation. By 1997, glaring warning signs were tragically ignored by an enabling entourage that prioritized box office returns over his survival. As his erratic behavior leaked to merciless tabloids, his management scrambled in a state of perpetual panic, desperate to sustain the lucrative illusion while the man underneath the spotlight systematically broke apart. The glittering illusion shattered completely in December 1997, when a tragic final chapter abruptly ended his life at just 33. The entertainment world was utterly paralyzed, forced to witness the terrifying aftermath of a ruthless Hollywood machine that cheered for his extremes until his system simply collapsed. His legacy remains a haunting, polarized reflection, a brilliant talent standing as a chilling reminder that a billion-dollar smile often conceals an agonizing, invisible battle for survival. A comedic powerhouse fatally crushed by the very industry that relentlessly demanded his energy. But what happens when a star's destruction is not a heavily publicized accident of fame, but the deliberate result of an ironclad studio contract that silently dismantles their life from the inside out? Number 8. Judy Garland. Consider the ultimate American sweetheart. During Hollywood's golden age, Judy Garland was not just a beloved actress. She was a meticulously engineered studio treasure. With a once-in-a-generation voice and an incandescent on-screen innocence, she anchored massive musical blockbusters. Audiences idolized a radiant, flawless icon. Industry executives banked on an obedient billion-dollar asset. She reached a staggering peak of fame, projecting a brilliant, untouchable facade that made the systematic exploitation occurring behind studio gates utterly unimaginable. The crisis was not a sudden scandal, but a decades-long, heavily concealed, destructive cycle of fame mandated by the very people who built her. Behind the velvet curtains, a hidden life exposed a severe health crisis engineered by ironclad studio contracts. From her teenage years, she was pushed into a profound, unmanaged medical dependency, just to sustain grueling production schedules. By the 1950s and 60s, glaring warning signs were ruthlessly ignored. As emergency hospitalizations and erratic performances leaked to predatory tabloids, her management scrambled in perpetual panic. The immense pressure of surviving her own legendary persona triggered a devastating turn, violently shattering her golden image under the microscope of relentless media scrutiny. Official accounts ultimately confirmed a heartbreaking final chapter. Despite her immense cinematic contributions, the industry essentially abandoned her, leaving her fortune decimated and her career fractured by complex medical turmoil. In June 1969, she passed away at just 47, her physical system completely exhausted. Today, her legacy remains a deeply polarizing reflection, an immortal vocal genius standing as a chilling historical record of a studio era that consumed its brightest stars alive. A generational talent who was systematically dismantled by the very contracts that promised her eternity. But what happens when a star's tragic fall from grace isn't orchestrated by ruthless studio executives, but triggered by an irreversible cosmetic decision that permanently mutilates their billion-dollar brand? Number 7. Elvis Presley. Picture a cultural earthquake that permanently reshaped the world. Elvis Presley wasn't just a musician. He was the undisputed king of rock and roll. With unparalleled charisma and a revolutionary sound, he commanded unprecedented wealth. Audiences idolized a vibrant, rebellious icon. The industry weaponized him into a billion-dollar empire. He reached a dazzling peak of fame, projecting an untouchable facade that made the deeply isolated reality brewing behind the gates of Graceland entirely unimaginable. The devastating turn wasn't a sudden scandal, but a heavily concealed, destructive cycle of fame. Behind closed doors, a hidden life exposed a severe health crisis driven by an ironclad grip from his management. Throughout the 1970s, industry insiders claimed that a grueling, relentless tour schedule pushed him into a profound medical dependency. Glaring warning signs were aggressively ignored. As erratic performances leaked to the press, his PR team worked in perpetual panic, desperate to mask his rapidly changing appearance and maintain the royal illusion. Official accounts ultimately confirmed a tragic final chapter. In August 1977, a sudden, catastrophic medical event claimed his life at just 42. While his estate continued to print money, the man himself was entirely consumed by the ruthless machine that built him. Today, his story remains a chilling historical record of the crushing, fatal isolation of absolute stardom. A musical deity who revolutionized the world, only to perish as a captive within his own legendary palace. But what happens when a star's permanent downfall isn't driven by ruthless managers, but by an irreversible cosmetic decision that instantly obliterates a flawless image? Number 6. Corey Monteith. Imagine the ultimate squeaky clean primetime idol. In the early 2000s, Corey Monteith wasn't just a television actor. He was the wholesome heartbeat of a global musical phenomenon. As the charming all-American quarterback on a billion-dollar series, he commanded an intensely loyal international fan base. Audiences worshipped an emblem of youthful innocence and hope. Network executives banked on a flawless, highly lucrative asset. He achieved an astronomical peak fame, projecting a radiant, untouchable facade that made the severe hidden struggles behind the scenes entirely unfathomable. The devastating turn wasn't a sudden scandal, but a heavily guarded, destructive cycle of fame. Behind the glittering promotional tours and polished musical numbers, a hidden life exposed a deep-rooted, unmanaged medical dependency. The staggering pressure of anchoring a cultural juggernaut only amplified his internal battles. By early 2013, industry insiders claimed his PR team was in a state of quiet panic, orchestrating emergency interventions to prevent a devastating PR crisis. Despite their desperate efforts to maintain the choir boy illusion, the crushing weight of public perfection eventually triggered a tragic fall from grace, violently shattering the pristine network image. In July 2013, official accounts confirmed a catastrophic final chapter inside a Vancouver hotel room. At just 31, his physical system entirely collapsed. The aftermath left the entertainment industry completely paralyzed, forcing a mega network to awkwardly grieve while hastily rewriting its flagship show. His legacy remains a heartbreaking paradox, a symbol of primetime joy, standing as a chilling reminder that a flawless television smile often masks a fatal, silent fight. A beloved primetime hero who sang about hope while quietly losing his own battle for survival. But what happens when a devastating PR crisis isn't caused by hidden demons, but by a shocking media leak that permanently dismantles a superstar's empire overnight? The camera lens operates as a master of deception, flattening human distress into a profitable commodity. From a systemic overview, when public demand dictates a person's entire worth, vital psychological boundaries are erased. A biological framework cannot be continuously overclocked without a critical malfunction. Surrounding vulnerable individuals with enablers rather than protectors guarantees that warning signs remain buried beneath revenue reports. The machinery rarely pauses to check the vital signs of its raw material. Yet, physiological collapse is usually a quiet descent. What occurs when the destruction is instantaneous, engineered by a catastrophic, unauthorized information leak? Number 5. Philip Seymour Hoffman. There are movie stars, and then there are true cinematic forces. Philip Seymour Hoffman was undeniably the most profoundly gifted character actor of his generation. An Academy Award-winning heavyweight, he brought staggering emotional depth to every single frame. Audiences revered an intensely intellectual, grounded artist. Studios and legendary directors relied on a prestige asset who guaranteed critical acclaim. At his absolute peak, he projected an aura of profound, untouchable mastery, forging a golden facade of professional stability that made the devastating private reality brewing behind closed doors entirely unthinkable. The collapse wasn't a sudden explosive scandal, but a quiet, deeply guarded relapse after more than 2 decades of hard-won sobriety. Behind the prestigious theater curtains and indie film accolades, a hidden life exposed a severe, escalating health crisis. By late 2013, industry insiders claimed that a grueling workload and the relentless internal pressure to perform had reawakened a destructive cycle of fame. While his PR team maintained his aura of quiet dignity, desperate interventions were reportedly failing out of the public eye. The turning point arrived when this intensely private battle finally eclipsed his professional control, leaving his management in a state of absolute panic as the man behind the genius systematically slipped away. In February 2014, official accounts confirmed a tragic final chapter inside a Manhattan apartment. At just 46, a sudden medical emergency claimed the life of a generational titan. The entertainment world was universally paralyzed, forced to awkwardly reconcile his towering cinematic legacy with an agonizing, unmanaged dependency. Today, his story stands as a heartbreaking, solemn reminder that even the most brilliant, seemingly invincible minds are never entirely immune to the silent, crushing weight of internal battles. A master of his craft who flawlessly portrayed the human condition on screen, only to quietly lose his own agonizing hidden fight off camera. Number 4. Anna Nicole Smith. Consider the ultimate 1990s media obsession. Anna Nicole Smith wasn't just a highly recognizable model. She was an unprecedented tabloid goldmine. From a small-town unknown to a globally recognized bombshell, she captured the world's absolute attention. Audiences were mesmerized by her larger-than-life, chaotic persona. Industry executives banked on her undeniable lucrative shock value. She achieved a dizzying peak fame, projecting a glamorous, carefree facade that perfectly masked the profound, agonizing vulnerabilities hidden beneath the blinding paparazzi flashes. The collapse wasn't a sudden fall in the shadows, but a highly publicized, destructive cycle of fame broadcast on daily television. Behind the relentless tabloid headlines and glaring reality show cameras, a hidden life exposed a severe, escalating health crisis. Throughout the early 2000s, the media speculated relentlessly as she became entangled in grueling billion-dollar legal battles over her late husband's estate. As her erratic public appearances escalated, her PR team scrambled in absolute panic, desperate to maintain the spectacle. The immense pressure of sustaining her own media caricature eventually triggered a devastating turn, irrevocably shattering the glamorous illusion under the weight of merciless public mockery. In February 2007, official accounts confirmed a tragic final chapter inside a Florida hotel room. At just 39, a sudden medical emergency claimed her life, abruptly ending a deeply polarizing existence. Her staggering legacy remains a chilling historical record of a ruthless paparazzi era that eagerly consumed a vulnerable woman for profit until there was absolutely nothing left. a sensational icon who was ultimately devoured alive by the very media machine that crowned her. But what happens when a devastating PR crisis isn't driven by tabloid exploitation, but by an irreversible cosmetic decision that permanently mutilates a superstar's billion-dollar face overnight? Number 3. River Phoenix. Long before the tragic headlines, River Phoenix wasn't just another actor. He was Hollywood's most promising prodigy. Blessed with raw, generational talent and an ethereal boy-next-door charm, he effortlessly commanded the silver screen. He cultivated a fiercely guarded public image as a clean-living environmentalist walking red carpets with an aura of untouchable purity. It was an era of peak fame where every blinding camera flash solidified his status as the industry's golden boy. The illusion of perfection is often the heaviest burden to carry. Behind the velvet ropes of Hollywood's elite nightlife, that pristine image rapidly disintegrated. Industry insiders claimed the crushing weight of his meteoric rise forced him into a hidden life, exposed only in the shadows. On a fateful October night outside a legendary nightclub, a devastating crisis unfolded in real time. The media speculated about secret battles, but the reality was a sudden, fatal collapse on the pavement. Panicked PR teams could no longer shield him. The pristine facade shattered instantly under the glaring lights of arriving sirens. A single devastating night can erase a lifetime of meticulously crafted PR. In the immediate aftermath, studios were paralyzed, and a grieving public was left to process a tragic fall from grace. His unfinished projects were scrapped, and the once glowing tabloids quickly pivoted to dissecting a destructive cycle of fame. The ultimate reality was a generational talent extinguished on a cold Hollywood sidewalk, leaving his family devastated and an industry reeling. His legacy became a grim, cautionary tale. Fame demands an ultimate price, often collecting its debt in the dark. But what happens when an irreversible cosmetic decision transforms the next beloved megastar into an unrecognizable stranger? Number 2. Heath Ledger. Far beyond the typical Hollywood heartthrob, Heath Ledger possessed a rare, transformative genius that redefined modern cinema. He effortlessly transitioned from teen rom-com darling to a critically acclaimed powerhouse, commanding the silver screen with raw, undeniable gravity. This was a peak fame built on sheer artistic brilliance, a golden facade of a soaring career illuminated by standing ovations and breathless red carpet anticipation. The brightest stars often burn closest to the edge. Behind closed doors, the narrative took a harrowing shift. As he threw himself entirely into an intensely dark, psychologically demanding role, industry insiders claimed the toll was overwhelming. Reports stated he battled severe exhaustion, trapped in a hidden life, exposed only to relentless insomnia. While the media speculated about his extreme method acting, a devastating personal crisis was silently unfolding. The PR machine could only watch helplessly as his meticulously built equilibrium shattered completely inside a quiet New York apartment. Complete artistic surrender can sometimes lead to a point of no return. The aftermath brought a paralyzing shock to the entire industry. Studios immediately halted production, his family was plunged into unimaginable grief, and the world witnessed a tragic fall from grace that felt entirely surreal. His final legendary performance earned him immortal cinematic glory, yet the reality was the permanent, devastating loss of a generational talent. True genius often dances too closely with the abyss. But what happens when a devastating media leak exposes a secret contract that quietly ruined the life of the world's biggest pop icon? Number 1. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe wasn't just a star. she was the ultimate architect of the Hollywood bombshell archetype. With trademark platinum curls and breathless charm, she enchanted an entire era, effortlessly dominating the global box office. It was a peak fame built on dazzling magazine spreads and iconic billowing dresses, a meticulously crafted golden facade that convinced the world she was entirely untouchable. The brightest smiles often conceal the deepest fractures. Behind the heavy studio gates, the pristine narrative rapidly fractured. As executives demanded an impossible standard of perfection, industry insiders claimed the crushing pressure triggered a hidden life exposed to severe emotional volatility. While the media speculated about highly publicized, tumultuous marriages and alleged high-profile political affairs, a devastating personal crisis was silently deepening. The relentless tabloid machine actively weaponized her vulnerabilities. Her PR team fought aggressively to maintain the glamorous illusion, but reports stated she was trapped in a destructive cycle of fame, completely overwhelmed by a media caricature she could no longer escape. An iconic image is often a prison built by public demand. Ultimately, the spectacle concluded in a tragic fall from grace that forever altered pop culture history. The world awoke to the devastating news of her sudden passing, leaving powerful figures scrambling to control the narrative and an audience paralyzed by grief. Studios quickly pivoted to their next projects, but the reality was the permanent loss of a deeply misunderstood intellectual forced to play the fool. Her legacy remains Hollywood's ultimate, haunting, cautionary tale. Fame is an intoxicating poison, often masked as a golden ticket. But what happens when an irreversible cosmetic decision permanently alters a beloved megastar, leaving them an unrecognizable stranger to their own fans? When the cameras stop rolling, the silence often becomes deafening. These shattered lives are not mere Hollywood scandals. They are glaring alarms. Addiction is a silent predator feeding on exhaustion, untreated pain, and the terrifying fear of losing control. Real strength is not found in maintaining a flawless public illusion, but in possessing the courage to ask for help before the screen fades to black. Intervention, professional support, and genuine compassion save lives. No standing ovation is worth your sanity. Seek guidance. Choose survival. The blinding glare of stardom often conceals the coldest, most unforgiving realities. A single dismissed warning can irrevocably alter a legacy, leaving behind nothing but an irreversible, deafening silence. These tragedies are not merely Hollywood scandals. They are vital archives of human fragility. Subscribe to Hollywood Stars and Scars to decode the unseen evidence, recognize those desperate pleas for help, and examine real case files through an uncompromising documentary lens. Do not miss our next reel, because the projector always stops, but the shadows remain. The loudest applause cannot drown out the deafening silence of a locked room. When the studio lights finally power down, the Hollywood illusion burns away, leaving only fragile mortals and their unchecked demons. To understand the ignored warnings behind these Hollywood scandals and disturbing tragedies, you must look closer. Subscribe to Hollywood Stars and Scars as we continue to unlock the restricted archives of history, piece together the overlooked evidence, and ensure the next crucial frame isn't lost to time. Because the applause always fades, but the truth remains. Behind the glitter, the scars remain. Welcome to Hollywood Stars and Scars. Number 20, Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is the ultimate American everyman. A two-time Oscar winner, globally beloved for his golden personality and dynamic roles. For decades, his public image projected invincible health and boundless energy. He was the anchor of Hollywood, an actor whose on-screen resilience mirrored what fans believed was an untouchable, flawless off-screen life. But behind the rigorous filming schedules and red carpet smiles, a silent, progressive threat was taking root. The turning point didn't happen in a sudden flash, but through a series of subtle health indicators easily dismissed by a relentless work ethic. The devastating turn came when the invisible symptoms could no longer be ignored, forcing a quiet medical intervention. Hanks found himself confronting a chronic condition that secretly lurked within, demanding an immediate, non-negotiable overhaul of his entire lifestyle and fundamentally threatening his demanding career pace. Official accounts confirmed a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. The revelation shattered the illusion of celebrity invulnerability. Medical management of his health journey dictated that this serious health crisis required strict, lifelong discipline, transforming his daily routine into a calculated protocol of control. The aftermath forced him to navigate an invisible burden, balancing blockbuster commitments with relentless dietary and physical scrutiny. His ongoing battle serves as a stark reminder ignoring the body's early warnings can force a permanent lifestyle shift, proving that chronic illness spares no level of fame or fortune. A Hollywood titan learned that controlling a cinematic narrative cannot control biology. But what happens when an illness doesn't just attack the failing physical body, but targets the very mind that built a global franchise? Number 19. Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman was Hollywood's ultimate voice of authority. With his majestic demeanor and iconic deep resonance, he projected an image of unshakable strength and composure. For decades, he was the industry's stoic anchor, a veteran actor whose on-screen presence commanded absolute respect and suggested a life of total control and untouchable stability. But in 2008, a single devastating turn shattered that flawless equilibrium. A horrific car accident became the catalyst for a serious health crisis. The immediate trauma was just the beginning. The crash inflicted severe nerve damage in his left hand, triggering a relentless, lifelong battle with fibromyalgia. The physical impact was irreversible, plunging the actor into a daily reality of intense, unrelenting chronic pain. A split-second event permanently altered his physical trajectory, leaving him to wrestle with a condition that fundamentally attacked his nervous system. Official accounts described a grueling aftermath, where the actor was forced to adapt to severe physical limitations. Medical interventions required him to frequently wear a specialized compression glove to manage the continuous agony in his arm. Despite the invisible burden, Freeman bravely continued his illustrious career, masking his immense physical struggles behind a calm exterior. His ongoing fight serves as a sobering reminder: a sudden trauma can completely rewrite an individual's physical reality, demanding silent resilience in the face of incurable pain. A Hollywood legend fought to conceal his physical agony behind a stoic mask, proving that a commanding voice cannot silence a failing body. But what happens when the affliction isn't just physical pain, but a devastating condition that slowly erases the very mind that made a star a global icon? Number 18. Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson was the undisputed king of Hollywood charisma. With his piercing gaze and mysterious smile, he dominated the silver screen, captivating millions for decades. He was a cinematic powerhouse whose very presence defined the essence of a larger-than-life celebrity. For years, his public image projected an unstoppable magnetic force, making him a permanent fixture in the entertainment industry's most exclusive circles. But in recent years, a devastating turn altered his trajectory. Nicholson almost completely withdrew from public life, sparking immediate industry concern. The turning point wasn't a public scandal, but a quiet, mysterious disappearance from public events. A legendary figure who once thrived in the spotlight systematically retreated behind closed doors, severing his connection with the cameras that built his empire. Investigative reports stated that the actor was battling a serious health crisis. Alarming media accounts described signs of severe memory loss, with multiple sources pointing toward a progressive dementia or Alzheimer's disease diagnosis. The aftermath forced a once great talent into absolute seclusion. The public was left to process a tragic final chapter, where an unstoppable mind was slowly dismantled. It is a chilling reminder time and illness can quietly push a legend into the shadows of oblivion. A Hollywood mastermind was forced into the shadows by an invisible enemy attacking his own memories. But what happens when an unseen threat doesn't slowly fade the mind, but strikes with a sudden, near-fatal ambush? Number 17. Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis was the ultimate cinematic symbol of American resilience. For decades, his name was synonymous with explosive action and indomitable strength, anchoring the massive Die Hard franchise. On screen, he was the untouchable hero who could survive any physical assault or impossible odds. His public image projected an aura of absolute invincibility, leading millions to believe that the man behind the stunts was just as unbreakable as his iconic characters. But in 2022, a devastating turn dismantled that heroic facade. The threat wasn't a scripted explosion, but a silent, invisible enemy attacking his brain. Early warning signs of cognitive struggles culminated in a shocking family announcement. Willis was diagnosed with aphasia, a severe condition abruptly stripping away his ability to communicate. Just 1 year later, in 2023, the timeline took a tragic final chapter when his condition aggressively progressed to frontotemporal dementia, or FTD. The ultimate action star was suddenly thrust into a real-life battle where he couldn't fight back as the cruel disease began actively stealing his memories and his ability to interact. Official accounts described a heartbreaking reality. The cognitive damage was irreversible, forcing an immediate and permanent retirement from the entertainment industry. Media outlets and former colleagues mourned the sudden loss of a Hollywood giant. The aftermath left his family grappling with a relentless decline and an industry completely shaken by the abrupt end to an illustrious career. It stands as a chilling truth: no amount of cinematic invincibility can protect a mind from the ruthless progression of an incurable neurological disease. A legendary action hero survived countless on-screen explosions, only to be defeated by a silent erasure of his own mind. But what happens when the next Hollywood titan isn't battling a slowly fading cognition, but a sudden, life-threatening medical emergency that strikes without any warning? The camera lens manufactures immortality, freezing cultural icons at the peak of their physical and mental command. Yet the biological ledger keeps its own ruthless time. Behind the armor of celebrity, a microscopic rebellion, a failing pancreas, frayed nerves, or dying neurons systematically dismantles the myth. The human organism cannot read a script. When early biological distress signals are ignored to maintain a flawless public performance, silent conditions advance past the point of medical intervention. Fame offers zero cellular immunity. But while internal biology slowly erodes the mind, other destructive forces strike from the outside, arriving with terrifying, catastrophic suddenness. Number 16. Selena Gomez. Selena Gomez was the ultimate teenage icon. With a globally adored pop career, her public image projected flawless youth and boundless energy. For years, she navigated the intense spotlight as a picture-perfect star representing an untouchable success story where every move was seemingly choreographed for millions of adoring fans. But behind the tours, a devastating turn was quietly dismantling her physical foundation. The breaking point occurred when an invisible threat, lupus, triggered a serious health crisis. The grueling schedule masked severe complications until her body simply could no longer keep up. In 2017, the timeline reached a critical juncture when Gomez underwent a high-risk kidney transplant, utilizing an organ donated by her close friend, Francia Raisa. It was a desperate medical intervention, kept hidden from the cameras until the scars could no longer be concealed. Official accounts confirmed the harrowing extent of her autoimmune disease, coupled with severe ongoing battles with anxiety and depression. The aftermath fundamentally altered her career trajectory, exposing the hidden tragedy behind her strong facade. Her medical reality dismantled the illusion of a perfect Hollywood life, revealing a dual burden of physical and psychological trauma. It stands as a stark realization immense wealth and global adoration cannot negotiate with a failing immune system. A teenage idol survived a biological betrayal by relying on the ultimate sacrifice of a friend. But what happens when an invincible on-screen superhero discovers a relentless returning threat etched directly into his own skin? Number 15. Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman was the ultimate cinematic symbol of raw physical power. Globally renowned as the unstoppable Wolverine, his public image projected explosive energy and an exterior that could withstand any assault. He dominated Hollywood as an untouchable action hero representing an idealized vision of peak human resilience. Fans firmly believed the man wielding the adamantium claws was truly indestructible off-screen. But behind the blockbuster stunts, a devastating turn quietly unfolded beneath the surface. The threat wasn't a scripted enemy, but a serious health crisis attacking his own skin. A seemingly minor warning sign quickly escalated into a destructive cycle of multiple skin cancer recurrences. The timeline of his career became marked by urgent medical interventions, forcing the actor to repeatedly confront a persistent, ever-looming danger, while desperately trying to maintain a grueling Hollywood schedule. Official accounts described a series of necessary surgeries leaving permanent physical scars and deep psychological impacts. The aftermath dismantled the illusion of superhuman invulnerability, exposing the harsh reality that a muscular exterior offers zero protection against a biological threat. He transitioned from a cinematic mutant into a silent warrior, leveraging his global platform to advocate for preventative health care and frequent screenings. It serves as a stark reminder, even the most physically imposing icons cannot outmuscle a relentless cellular disease. An action star learned that ultimate physical conditioning cannot repel a microscopic enemy etched directly into the skin. But what happens when an unseen threat doesn't just attack the surface, but completely paralyzes the very instrument that conquered the world? Number 14. Celine Dion. Celine Dion was the undisputed vocal queen of a generation. With an angelic voice that conquered millions worldwide, her public image was built on absolute musical perfection and majestic stage presence. For decades, she navigated massive global tours representing an untouchable powerhouse whose legendary performances seemed to effortlessly defy human limits. But behind the flawless concerts, a devastating turn was secretly taking hold of her nervous system. The warning signs likely started as unexplainable muscle spasms, easily brushed off as grueling tour fatigue, before culminating in a serious health crisis. The timeline shifted drastically when the invisible enemy began actively attacking her vocal cords and restricting her mobility. It was a biological betrayal that completely derailed her demanding residency schedule, forcing a sudden, non-negotiable halt to her illustrious career as her body simply began to lock up. Official accounts eventually confirmed a diagnosis of stiff person syndrome, SPS, an exceptionally rare and progressive neurological condition. The aftermath shattered the global entertainment industry, exposing the heartbreaking reality that the disease was literally robbing her of the very voice that defined her legacy. She was forced to transition from a vibrant stage queen to someone silently battling immense physical restrictions, struggling with every single movement. It stands as a chilling realization: an artist's most precious gift can be abruptly stolen by a relentless cellular malfunction. A global icon learned that millions of adoring fans cannot stop a rare neurological condition from silencing a legendary voice. But what happens when the next star isn't fighting a physical disease, but an invisible psychological terror that attacks the very mind behind the glamour? Number 13. Ian McKellen. Ian McKellen was the cinematic embodiment of timeless power and wisdom. Globally revered for his monumental portrayal of Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings franchise, his public image projected an aura of immortality. For decades, he anchored massive fantasy epics representing a sagely figure who could command armies and withstand any dark force. Fans saw an untouchable titan of the silver screen, whose majestic presence felt truly invincible. But behind the cinematic magic, a devastating turn was quietly taking root. The threat wasn't a scripted villain, but a serious health crisis developing silently within his own body. Away from the cameras, routine medical checks uncovered an invisible enemy. McKellen was thrust into a grueling reality when he received a prostate cancer diagnosis. It was a biological ambush that immediately shifted his timeline from commanding blockbuster sets to confronting a deeply personal and concerning medical battle. Official accounts confirmed the diagnosis, forcing the legendary actor to publicly acknowledge his health struggles. The aftermath shattered the illusion of Hollywood immortality, exposing a hidden burden carried behind his sagely facade. Medical management required him to carefully navigate his condition with strength and grace, balancing his ongoing career with rigorous healthcare protocols. His ongoing journey stands as a stark realization: even the most powerful on-screen figures are ultimately tethered to the fragile realities of human biology. A cinematic wizard learned that no amount of on-screen magic can banish a relentless cellular threat. But what happens when the next Hollywood veteran isn't facing a physical tumor, but an invisible disease that directly attacks the very core of his identity? Celluloid preserves the illusion of invulnerability, capturing icons at their absolute zenith, while microscopic mutinies wage war in the background. The human machine is programmed for survival, often suppressing critical distress signals to maintain outward function. Ignoring these quiet physiological anomalies in favor of relentless professional output allows manageable conditions to silently metastasize into irreversible systemic failure. Biology does not negotiate with box office returns. But what happens when the next catastrophic breakdown targets the mind rather than the flesh? Number 12. Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage was the cinematic embodiment of wild, unpredictable genius. With a versatile and highly eccentric acting style, he conquered Hollywood and captivated audiences for decades. His public image projected an intense, larger-than-life persona, making him an untouchable force in blockbuster cinema. Fans viewed his explosive energy as pure artistic brilliance, a unique talent completely in control of his own chaotic brand. But behind the chaotic on-screen characters, a devastating turn was quietly unspooling in his personal reality. The erratic behavior wasn't merely a performance choice. It was the symptom of an invisible internal threat. A serious health crisis manifested through extreme emotional highs and terrifying lows, silently attacking his stability. The timeline reached a critical juncture when his psychological battles profoundly disrupted his demanding career, forcing him into a relentless daily struggle against his own mind. Official accounts eventually confirmed a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. This revelation fundamentally shifted the narrative, unmasking the hidden burden behind his tumultuous life and eccentric roles. He transitioned from a highly guarded superstar into a vocal advocate, utilizing his global platform to raise crucial mental health awareness. His ongoing journey reveals a harsh truth. Immense artistic talent offers no immunity against a chronic psychological condition that demands lifelong management. A Hollywood eccentric learned that an explosive on-screen persona cannot shield a fragile mind from internal chaos. But what happens when the next megastar's erratic behavior isn't driven by a mental health diagnosis, but a destructive dependency cycle that completely decimates a brilliant career? Number 11. Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian is the architect of the modern reality TV empire. A billionaire entrepreneur whose entire brand is built on absolute physical perfection and a luxurious, meticulously curated lifestyle. For years, she dominated global media, projecting a flawless image where every detail of her appearance was carefully controlled and monetized. The public saw an untouchable icon of modern beauty who seemingly had it all. But behind the highly filtered cameras, a serious health crisis was silently dismantling that carefully constructed image. The turning point wasn't a public scandal, but a biological rebellion. A devastating turn occurred when her own immune system began attacking her, manifesting as severe psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis. The invisible threat triggered chronic joint pain and relentless visible skin peeling, forcing the reality star into a daily, agonizing battle, often hidden beneath designer clothing. The severe physical toll fundamentally shattered the illusion of a flawless persona. Official accounts and her own public disclosures confirmed the painful reality of her autoimmune condition. The aftermath altered her relationship with her multi-billion-dollar image, forcing her to confront deep body image issues. Medical management now dictates her daily routine as she continuously navigates the intense physical pain away from the spotlight. Her ongoing struggle serves as a stark reminder unparalleled wealth and global fame offer absolutely zero immunity against an indiscriminate biological condition. A billionaire beauty mogul learned that infinite resources cannot buy an escape from a relentless autoimmune attack. But what happens when the next cultural icon isn't facing a physical skin condition, but an irreversible neurological disease that permanently traps them in their own failing body? Number 10. Michael J. Fox. Michael J. Fox was the ultimate symbol of youthful exuberance and boundless optimism. Globally beloved as the energetic lead of the Back to the Future franchise, his image projected an unstoppable, vibrant force. He navigated Hollywood as a dynamic star representing a picture-perfect success story where limitless potential seemed guaranteed. But behind the blockbuster premieres, a devastating turn quietly disrupted his reality. In 1991, at just 29 years old, the timeline reached a critical juncture when he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. It was a biological thunderclap kept hidden from cameras for 7 years. The pressure of masking severe physical tremors forced a quiet, daily struggle against a relentless condition actively dismantling his motor control. His 1998 public disclosure confirmed the harrowing reality of his diagnosis. The aftermath completely altered his career, exposing the hidden burden carried behind his radiant smile. He transitioned from a leading man into a tireless advocate, launching a global foundation to fund neurological research. His ongoing fight serves as a stark realization: a serious health crisis can strike at the absolute peak of youth, proving that physical invincibility is an illusion. A cinematic time traveler learned that no on-screen magic can rewind a progressive biological clock. But what happens when the next beloved icon faces an aggressive, life-threatening cancer that demands an immediate battle for survival? Number 9. Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller was widely celebrated as Hollywood's most beloved comedic actor. With a track record of blockbuster hits, his public persona projected the ultimate image of a friendly, relatable, funny man. Audiences viewed him as an easygoing entertainer, an architect of laughter whose entire brand relied on his cheerful, down-to-earth charm. But behind closed doors, a devastating turn shattered that curated illusion. The reality of working with the legend involved navigating an extreme, difficult-to-please personality driven by unbelievably petty demands. The timeline of his hidden behavior reached a shocking climax when he allegedly flew into an uncontrollable rage in a restaurant over a trivial detail: his Diet Coke did not contain 2 identical ice cubes. This disturbing tantrum exposed an impatient perfectionist tyrant who even forced his personal assistant to physically stand in an empty parking spot to guard it. Industry accounts confirmed a chilling contrast between his humorous characters and his demanding, real-life temperament. The aftermath of these leaked stories fundamentally altered his reputation behind the scenes. The public was forced to reconcile his friendly, cinematic image with the reality of a star exhibiting extreme selfishness and unwarranted anger. It serves as a stark reminder a talent for comedy can easily mask a deeply toxic ego. A beloved comedian proved that making the world laugh cannot conceal a terrorizing behind-the-scenes persona. But what happens when the next megastar's explosive ego isn't confined to a restaurant, but erupts on a live global broadcast, completely hijacking a fellow artist's defining moment? The public persona is a carefully engineered defense mechanism designed to conceal systemic internal collapse. Whether it is misfiring brain chemistry, an autoimmune revolt, or the unchecked toxicity born from absolute power, the human operating system eventually fractures under the weight of maintaining a flawless facade. We worship these polished avatars of fame, willfully ignoring the severe psychological and biological tolls exacted behind closed doors, proving that immense pressure always finds a destructive outlet. But what happens when the mask does not just slip in private, but shatters violently on a live global broadcast? Number 8. Jeff Bridges. Jeff Bridges was the ultimate cinematic embodiment of effortless cool. Universally beloved as the Dude from The Big Lebowski, the Oscar-winning actor projected an unshakable, laid-back aura that captivated generations of fans. For decades, he navigated Hollywood as a highly respected veteran whose on-screen resilience seemed to perfectly mirror his stable, relaxed, real-life persona. He was a pillar of the industry, seemingly untouchable by the typical chaos of stardom. But away from the movie sets, a devastating turn quietly disrupted his peaceful reality. The threat wasn't a sudden accident, but a silent, aggressive biological ambush. Fans were left stunned when a medical timeline culminated in a terrifying announcement: a serious health crisis had emerged. Bridges was abruptly diagnosed with lymphoma, forcing the famously relaxed actor into an immediate, anxiety-filled battle for survival. The invisible enemy demanded a grueling regimen, replacing his easygoing days with intense, high-stakes medical interventions. Official accounts later confirmed a miraculous recovery, announcing that the actor had successfully entered remission. The aftermath completely reshaped his public narrative, exposing the intense vulnerability behind his cool exterior. He transitioned from a beloved cinematic icon into a powerful symbol of perseverance, utilizing his optimistic spirit to inspire others facing similar battles. His survival stands as a stark realization: a sudden, life-threatening illness can strike even the most unbothered legends, leaving haunting memories of a life-or-death struggle. An Oscar winner fought his way back from a cellular ambush with an unyielding spirit. But what happens when the next Hollywood icon isn't facing a treatable cancer, but an incurable neurological decline that slowly erases a lifetime of memories? Number 7. Tim Curry. Tim Curry was the cinematic icon of flamboyance and explosive energy. Globally celebrated for his legendary role in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, his public image projected an unstoppable, dynamic force. He dominated the screen with his powerful voice and theatrical presence. Fans saw a monumental figure possessing an infinite supply of vibrant energy. But in 2012, a devastating turn suddenly disrupted his reality. The threat was a silent, aggressive, biological ambush. The timeline reached a shocking juncture when a massive stroke unexpectedly attacked him. It was a serious health crisis that immediately halted his dynamic performances, plunging the actor into a grueling emergency. The sudden strike fundamentally targeted his nervous system, actively stripping away the motor skills and vocal power that built his career. Official accounts confirmed the severe aftermath. The stroke permanently confined the once explosive star to a wheelchair. Medical realities forced him to navigate extreme physical limitations, significantly altering his iconic voice and mobility. Yet he transitioned into a resilient survivor, bravely returning to participate in voiceover projects. His journey serves as a stark realization: a sudden biological event can instantly rewrite a physical trajectory, demanding courage to adapt. A theatrical legend proved that boundless on-screen energy cannot outrun a neurological strike. But what happens when the next Hollywood veteran faces a rare blood cancer that forces an experimental high-stakes battle for survival? Number 6. Hugh Laurie. Hugh Laurie was the ultimate television embodiment of medical genius. Globally celebrated for his brilliant, detached portrayal of Dr. Gregory House, his public image projected an aura of supreme intellect and clinical control. For years, he dominated the screen as a cynical diagnostician who could solve any impossible medical puzzle, making audiences believe the actor himself possessed an untouchable, calculated resilience. But away from the fictional hospital sets, a devastating turn was quietly rewriting his personal reality. The threat wasn't a scripted medical mystery, but a serious health crisis unfolding within his own body. A medical examination confirmed an invisible, lifelong enemy: type 1 diabetes. This biological ambush immediately shifted his timeline, forcing the actor into an urgent, unyielding regimen. The sudden reality demanded absolute discipline and constant attention to his health, completely shattering the illusion of his untouchable television persona. Official accounts described a grueling new normal, where strict daily monitoring became a matter of survival. The aftermath forced the iconic actor to navigate the exact kind of chronic condition his famous character would treat. His daily life transformed into a calculated, silent battle of continuous health management behind closed doors. His journey serves as a stark realization: mastering medical dialogue on camera offers zero protection against a relentless biological reality. A legendary television doctor learned that no script can cure a chronic cellular betrayal. But what happens when the next beloved icon doesn't face a manageable physical condition, but an aggressive, progressive disease that systematically strips away their entire physical autonomy? Number 5. Kristen Stewart. Kristen Stewart was the undisputed face of a global pop culture phenomenon. With her unique style and melancholic presence, she skyrocketed to unprecedented fame, becoming a massive idol overnight. Her public image projected a cool, untouchable star who had easily conquered Hollywood. Fans saw an incredibly successful actress who seemingly had absolute control over her thriving career trajectory. But behind the relentless paparazzi flashes, a devastating turn was quietly taking root. The threat wasn't a physical disease, but a crushing psychological burden triggered by intense public scrutiny. A serious health crisis manifested as severe anxiety, initiating a silent war within her own mind. The overwhelming pressure of massive fame forced the young actress to secretly grapple with intense fears and crippling insecurities while actively maintaining her stoic public facade. Official public disclosures eventually confirmed the exhausting reality of her condition, unmasking the dark truth about the extreme pressures of celebrity life. The aftermath transformed her from a guarded megastar into a vocal advocate for mental health awareness. Her ongoing battle serves as a stark realization: immense wealth and global adoration offer absolutely zero protection against an invisible internal terror that demands constant psychological management. A Hollywood idol learned that an untouchable persona cannot shield a vulnerable mind from the crushing weight of fame. But what happens when the next star isn't fighting a psychological battle, but a relentless physical condition demanding risky organ transplants just to survive? The archives of human achievement operate on a dangerous premise that brilliance insulates the physical body. It does not. Whether it is a sudden vascular strike, a metabolic revolt, or crippling psychological pressure, human biology remains ruthlessly democratic. We demand our icons function at an unsustainable frequency, ignoring the physiological debt accruing beneath the spotlight. True survival requires recognizing that baseline biology cannot be outworked or outacted. The camera merely captures a performance, but the cellular ledger always collects its toll. What transpires when the next betrayal targets a failing, irreplaceable organ? Number 4. Emilia Clarke. Emilia Clarke was the fierce and untouchable mother of dragons. Globally revered for her defining role in the massive Game of Thrones franchise, her public image projected absolute strength and invincibility. She navigated the peak of television history as a conquering queen, representing an empowered icon who commanded armies and ruled the screen. Fans saw a young, unstoppable actress seemingly in total control of her skyrocketing career. But away from the fantasy sets a devastating turn quietly ambushed her reality. The threat wasn't a scripted battle, but a sudden serious health crisis inside her own head. At the absolute height of her fame, the timeline reached a terrifying juncture when she suffered 2 brain aneurysms. These were near-death moments that struck without warning, instantly halting her grueling production schedule. The invisible biological strike forced the conquering queen into a desperate, real-life fight for her own survival, completely shattering the illusion of her on-screen invincibility. Official accounts confirmed the horrifying severity of the medical emergencies. The aftermath left her with unhealing emotional wounds and a lingering fear of imminent death. She transitioned from a fantasy ruler into a grounded warrior, utilizing her global platform to advocate for brain injury awareness. Her harrowing survival stands as a chilling truth. Unprecedented fame and television dominance offer zero protection against a sudden, life-threatening internal collapse. A television queen crossed the threshold of life and death, proving that on-screen dragons cannot conquer biological fragility. But what happens when the next musical legend doesn't face a sudden brain injury, but a relentless autoimmune disease that slowly locks away her ability to move? Number 3. Jason Isaacs. Jason Isaacs was the cinematic embodiment of aristocratic menace. Globally recognized for his chilling portrayal of Lucius Malfoy in the massive Harry Potter franchise, his public image projected absolute, calculated power. For years, he dominated the screen as a formidable villain, projecting an aura of untouchable authority and cold control that captivated millions of fans worldwide. But away from the blockbuster fantasy sets a devastating turn quietly ambushed his reality. The threat wasn't a scripted enemy, but an incredibly rare and silent biological strike. The timeline reached a terrifying juncture when a medical examination revealed a serious health crisis. Isaacs was abruptly diagnosed with male breast cancer. This unexpected ambush immediately shifted his focus from commanding film sets to facing an urgent life-or-death battle. The invisible enemy forced the formidable on-screen villain to confront a deeply terrifying and intensely personal vulnerability behind closed doors. Official accounts later confirmed he successfully survived the harrowing ordeal. The aftermath completely altered his public narrative, transforming him from a guarded actor into a vocal advocate. He bravely utilized his story to break the intense stigma surrounding male breast cancer, offering crucial support to others facing the exact same terrifying diagnosis. His survival stands as a stark realization, A sudden, life-threatening illness can strike anyone at any time, proving that even the most formidable on-screen figures are bound by biological fragility. A cinematic villain learned that a rare cellular threat is far more terrifying than any fictional magic. But what happens when the next beloved television star doesn't face a treatable tumor, but a progressive neurological decline that systematically locks away his physical autonomy? Number 2. Avril Lavigne. Avril Lavigne was the undisputed pop-punk princess of a generation. With her rebellious style and powerful voice, she dominated the early 2000s music scene, projecting an image of boundless, defiant youth. Her public persona was built on raw energy and unstoppable momentum, making her a global idol who seemed entirely immune to the typical vulnerabilities of the industry. Fans saw an incredibly successful artist who possessed absolute control over her thriving career trajectory. But behind the platinum records, a devastating turn quietly hijacked her reality. The threat wasn't a career misstep, but an invisible biological ambush. Without warning, severe and unexplainable symptoms began to dismantle her stamina. Relentless fatigue and chronic physical pain forced her into a sudden, mysterious disappearance from the public eye. The timeline reached a critical juncture when this serious health crisis grounded her completely, threatening to permanently end her dynamic career as her body simply shut down under the weight of an unidentified enemy. Official medical accounts eventually confirmed a diagnosis of Lyme disease, a lingering, debilitating condition often easily dismissed or overlooked in its early stages. The aftermath forced the once energetic star into a grueling, isolated battle for survival. Although she ultimately made a strong return to the spotlight, the experience permanently altered her trajectory, transforming her from a carefree icon into a silent warrior and vocal advocate for others facing mysterious health battles. Her harrowing journey stands as a stark realization: a microscopic threat can silently dismantle an empire of youth and energy if early warning signs remain undetected. A pop-punk icon learned that rebellious energy offers zero defense against a silent cellular invasion. But what happens when the next chart-topping diva isn't fighting a tick-borne illness, but an aggressive autoimmune condition that systematically attacks her own organs from the inside out? Number 1. George Clooney. George Clooney was the ultimate architect of Hollywood magnetism. Globally celebrated as a powerhouse actor and producer, his public image projected untouchable charm and effortless sophistication. He navigated the global spotlight as an absolute A-list titan. Fans saw an invincible leading man who had completely mastered the grueling entertainment industry. But away from the flashing red carpet cameras, a devastating turn quietly ambushed his reality. The threat wasn't a career misstep, but an invisible biological strike. Without warning, a serious health crisis forced the superstar into a silent, life-or-death battle. The timeline reached a terrifying juncture when he was suddenly struck down by a severe bout of meningitis. This unexpected emergency immediately halted his momentum, demanding extreme endurance, as his body fought an internal war hidden entirely from the public eye. Official accounts confirmed the harrowing severity of this near-death experience. While he successfully overcame the horrific ordeal and resumed his illustrious career, the aftermath left deep psychological imprints. He transitioned back into the spotlight, carrying the unseen weight of intense human vulnerability. It stands as a chilling realization: immense wealth and worldwide adoration offer absolutely zero immunity against a sudden, life-threatening medical emergency. A Hollywood icon survived a microscopic ambush, proving unparalleled fame cannot negotiate with biology. But what happens when the next legendary star isn't fighting an acute infection, but an aggressive cancer systematically targeting his own voice? Behind the locked doors of guarded hospital wings and VIP trailers, the Hollywood illusion collapses. Millions cannot bribe a deteriorating mind, nor can blockbuster fame justify relentless psychological abuse. We worship icons oblivious to the monstrous egos and medical sentences destroying them behind closed doors. You are examining the restricted files of the tragic reels, a documented timeline of disturbing tragedies, exposing the true cost of stardom. But the most unsettling footage is yet to play. What happens when an untouchable cinematic hero, a man paid a fortune to portray justice on screen, uses his unchecked power to mercilessly break the very crew, keeping him in focus? Closing the archives of the tragic reels, a stark reality emerges from these disturbing tragedies. Fame provides no armor against biological collapse or psychological ruin. When suffocating isolation collides with absolute power, the human spirit either shatters quietly or weaponizes its pain against others. We idolize perfection, ignoring the desperate red flags of mental deterioration. Survival demands aggressive accountability and immediate psychological intervention before the breaking point. True strength is never found in maintaining a flawless theatrical mask. It exists in the terrifying courage to step away from the applause, dismantle the destructive ego, and beg for a lifeline when control slips away. Behind the million-dollar box office smiles lay a brutal assembly line, demanding unanesthetized physical mutilation, erased ethnicities, and trafficked children, just to feed an insatiable public. You are exploring Hollywood, Stars and Scars, an investigative archive dismantling the most destructive Hollywood scandals ever concealed by the industry's ironclad PR machine. Fame demanded their absolute humanity. But just how far would studio executives go to protect a profitable illusion? Today, we are pulling back the velvet curtain down to an Oscar-winning screen siren whose unspeakable midnight discovery involving an underage family member annihilated her A-list legacy overnight. What happens when the cameras stop rolling and the ultimate taboo is exposed? Behind the glitter, the scars remain. Welcome to Hollywood Stars and Scars. Number 20. Merle Oberon. Fake background. Bathed in the blinding flashbulbs of Hollywood's golden age, Merle Oberon possessed an ethereal elegance that commanded the silver screen. Studio executives branded her as exotic royalty, a refined aristocrat from the elite circles of Tasmania, draping her in diamonds and an aura of untouchable prestige. Behind the velvet curtains and perfectly crafted press releases lay a staggering web of deception designed to erase her true Anglo-Indian heritage. Industry insiders and powerful publicists aggressively buried her origins, forcing the star to memorize a fabricated history that fractured her own sense of identity under relentless studio pressure. The psychological toll ran far deeper than a falsified passport. In a devastating manipulation of her own reality, she was meticulously brainwashed from childhood to believe her grandmother was her biological mother, while the woman she grew up calling her sister was actually the one who gave her life. A glittering crown cannot hide the psychological scars of a life built entirely on someone else's script. Number 19. Rita Hayworth. Childhood abuse. Draped in shimmering gowns and adored by millions, Rita Hayworth was the ultimate symbol of Hollywood glamour, a mesmerizing screen siren whose magnetic presence ignited the box office. Studio executives marketed her as the flawless American beauty, an untouchable icon immortalized in glossy magazines and blazing marquee lights. Behind the sculpted public image and relentless paparazzi flashes, a dark family secret was systematically buried. Before her transformation into a cinematic goddess, she was Margarita Cancino, a young woman trapped in a devastating cycle of exploitation. Reports stated she endured severe, ongoing abuse at the hands of her biological father. To manufacture their profitable star, the studio ruthlessly erased her Latin American heritage, forcing her through agonizingly painful electrolysis sessions to artificially reshape her hairline. Her original identity was stripped away, replaced by a constructed illusion that dominated the industry. The price of her manufactured perfection was the violent erasure of her true self, leaving behind hidden scars that no amount of studio lighting could ever truly conceal. Number 18. Jack Nicholson, The 37-Year Lie. Commanding Hollywood's absolute respect, Jack Nicholson was an unparalleled cinematic force. With his trademark sinister grin and magnetic intensity, he effortlessly dominated the silver screen, cultivating the image of an untouchable rebel. Yet beneath the signature sunglasses, his foundational reality was a carefully constructed fabrication. For 37 years, he existed inside a staggering deception designed to protect a fragile family reputation. The devastating truth only surfaced when journalists unearthed buried public records, permanently shattering his history. The woman he adored as his older sister was in fact his biological mother. Furthermore, the matriarch he called his mother was actually his grandmother. By the time the media exposed this hidden life, both women had passed away, taking their agonizing silence to the grave. Left entirely alone to process a fractured identity under blinding paparazzi flashes, the actor faced a profound psychological crisis. A man who spent his career mastering illusions ultimately discovered his own origin story was the greatest fiction of all. Number 17. Lon Chaney Sr.'s Silent Secret. Known as the Man of 1,000 Faces, Lon Chaney Sr. was a titan of the silent film era, contorting his body and morphing his features to become Hollywood's most mesmerizing chameleon. He dominated the silver screen and commanded the box office, captivating global audiences without ever uttering a single syllable. Yet behind the transformative makeup and thunderous standing ovations lay a fiercely guarded reality he feared the tabloids would weaponize. He systematically buried a deeply personal history, knowing that the industry's ruthless prejudices could instantly destroy a lucrative career. Reports stated he went to extraordinary lengths to hide the fact that both of his parents were profoundly deaf, desperate to protect his vulnerable family from the cruel stigma of early 20th century society. His unparalleled ability to communicate through silent pantomime was born not from theatrical training, but from the absolute necessity of speaking with his mother and father. The ultimate master of disguise spent his entire life shielding his most authentic truth behind an impenetrable mask of cinematic illusion. Number 16. Gene Tierney, The Tragedy of Motherhood. Radiating an ethereal allure that captivated millions, Gene Tierney reigned as the undisputed pinnacle of cinematic royalty. With her piercing gaze and flawless poise, she commanded premium studio contracts and glided across velvet red carpets, embodying the very definition of an untouchable silver screen goddess. However, her meticulously curated fairy tale fractured during an encounter that seemed entirely innocent. While pregnant and attending an exclusive public appearance, she was unknowingly exposed to rubella by an obsessed admirer who had brazenly violated a medical quarantine just to secure an autograph. The consequences of that single, fleeting interaction triggered an unimaginable personal catastrophe. Reports confirmed her child was born with profound disabilities, eventually requiring permanent placement in a psychiatric institution. The unbearable grief plunged the acclaimed actress into a paralyzing depression that culminated in severe psychological collapse and agonizing rounds of electroshock therapy. The most adoring applause ironically delivered the most devastating blow a mother could ever endure. Number 15. Patty Duke Bloodline Puzzle. Clutching a coveted Academy Award as a teenager, Patty Duke projected the flawless, all-American persona across millions of television screens. Executives capitalized on her youthful exuberance, building a lucrative broadcast empire on a squeaky clean brand that completely masked her volatile private reality. Behind the rehearsed smiles and glowing magazine covers, a frantic crisis erupted when she faced an unplanned pregnancy without knowing the father's identity. Desperate to outrun a looming tabloid massacre that would obliterate her wholesome reputation, she orchestrated a shockingly reckless maneuver. In a whirlwind of PR panic, she entered a sudden marriage with a stranger named Michael Tell, a fabricated union that legally dissolved after just 13 days. For decades, the paternity remained a fiercely guarded, tormenting question mark that haunted her household. It wasn't until the 1990s that clinical DNA testing finally resolved the agonizing mystery, confirming the transient 13-day husband was indeed the biological father. The brilliant prodigy spent her defining years performing innocence, while privately drowning in a desperate cover-up. Number 14. Clara Bow, the ghost of the family. Defining the Roaring Twenties. Clara Bow was the undisputed it girl, an effervescent cinematic icon whose magnetic charm fueled a massive studio empire. Captivating millions with her signature bob and infectious energy, she commanded red carpets as the ultimate symbol of jazz-age liberation. Yet beneath the manufactured smile and blinding marquee lights, executives aggressively buried a terrifying domestic reality. Studio fixers desperately concealed the devastating truth of her origins to protect their most lucrative asset from a society entirely unforgiving of personal trauma. Decades later, reports confirmed she survived an unimaginably dark childhood, enduring severe ongoing abuse at the hands of her biological father. Even more harrowing, the acclaimed star had narrowly escaped an unthinkable tragedy when her profoundly mentally ill mother attempted to take the young actress's life. Forced to project an aura of endless joy, she carried the unbearable weight of her past in absolute silence. The definitive poster child of carefree rebellion was secretly a shattered survivor, outrunning a legacy of profound domestic terror. Number 13. Raymond Burr. The ghost family that hides their gender. Ruling the golden age of television. Raymond Burr projected an unshakable aura of authority and absolute moral integrity. As the formidable star of massive broadcast dramas, his imposing presence commanded the screen and secured legendary status among audiences who implicitly trusted his every word. Yet the tragic history he shared in press interviews was a meticulously engineered ghost story designed to shield a heavily guarded reality. To navigate a prejudiced industry, he manufactured a devastating public narrative, claiming he had lost his beloved wife in a fatal plane crash and his young son to a battle with leukemia. This agonizing, widely publicized tale of loss was an absolute fabrication, constructed solely to deflect invasive tabloid scrutiny. Reports later confirmed the respected actor was desperately covering up his sexuality, living quietly with his male partner in a devoted relationship that spanned 35 hidden years. He spent decades prosecuting lies on television while being forced to live a heartbreaking fiction just to survive Hollywood. Number 12. Rock Hudson. A shell marriage. Embodying the absolute pinnacle of mid-century American masculinity, Rock Hudson was the ultimate romantic leading man. His chiseled features and effortless magnetism dominated global box offices, projecting an unblemished, fiercely heterosexual image that studio executives monetized into a ruthless, multi-million-dollar empire. Beneath the blinding glare of red carpet spotlights, however, a catastrophic PR crisis threatened to obliterate his reigning status. As dangerous rumors regarding his private sexuality began circulating among vicious tabloid syndicates, powerful industry executives initiated an aggressive, highly orchestrated cover-up. To neutralize the impending career assassination, studio fixers orchestrated an elaborate, legally binding illusion. Reports stated the media machine systematically engineered a fabricated marriage, forcing the beloved matinee idol into a heavily photographed union with his own agent's secretary. This corporate-mandated relationship was ruthlessly weaponized to satisfy a socially unforgiving public and protect a lucrative Hollywood brand. The defining symbol of traditional cinematic romance was tragically condemned to endure a life of meticulously choreographed isolation. Number 11. Spencer Tracy. Love in the Dark. Anchoring Hollywood's golden era with unparalleled gravitas, Spencer Tracy was the bedrock of cinematic integrity. Studio executives brilliantly monetized his stoic, authoritative presence, marketing him as the ultimate moral compass and the flawless embodiment of a devoted Catholic family man. Yet beneath the pristine press releases and flashbulbs, industry fixers rigorously policed a deeply fractured domestic reality. The revered patriarch was quietly trapped in a marriage that existed strictly on paper, permanently separated from his wife, behind closed doors. Shielded by a relentless media blackout, he maintained an intensely guarded 26-year clandestine romance with legendary leading lady Katharine Hepburn. To evade a devastating PR crisis in a morally unforgiving era, the deeply intertwined couple utilized separate residences and aggressive studio silence to orchestrate a staggering public deception. While millions applauded his on-screen honesty, the actor endured the agonizing weight of a heavily restricted personal existence. The screen's most celebrated paragon of truth spent his life burying his only real romance in the dark. The silver screen exacts a brutal toll for immortality, the systematic erasure of the true self. Behind manufactured glamour, a psychological quarantine was ruthlessly enforced, stripping individuals of their origins to feed a relentless public appetite. Prolonged identity suppression invariably fractures the human psyche. When any environment demands absolute perfection, it breeds a silent crisis where profound isolation masks itself as success. The danger lies in the slow, unseen erosion of a person's reality, a stark reminder that unchecked societal pressure can weaponize an existence against the very person living it. Some secrets, however, refuse to remain buried in the studio vaults. The next archive reveals the chilling cost of breaking character. Number 10. Joan Crawford. The truth about adopted children. Joan Crawford was the ultimate symbol of golden age glamour, her sharp cheekbones and Oscar-winning performances defining studio perfection. Behind the pristine gates of her mansion, she curated the ultimate public image, the devoted Hollywood mother. Flashbulbs captured a flawlessly styled matriarch smiling alongside her adopted children, cementing her legacy as a pillar of grace. Yet the immaculate veneer shattered under the weight of buried secrets. Decades later, her eldest daughter exposed a chilling reality of psychological control and relentless cruelty behind closed doors. Even more disturbing was the origin of Crawford's meticulously crafted family. Investigations revealed that her adopted children were acquired through the Tennessee Children's Home Society, an organization later exposed as a notorious child trafficking syndicate. The legendary actress had built her maternal empire on a foundation of illicit transactions. Her cinematic triumphs were forever eclipsed by a devastating public reckoning. The silver screen's greatest illusion was never her acting, but the manufactured family she bought to hide her darkness. Number 9. Bing Crosby, the family dictator. Crooning his way into the hearts of millions, Bing Crosby was the undisputed patriarch of mid-century American entertainment. His velvet voice and relaxed demeanor painted the picture of the ultimate benevolent father. Audiences fully bought into the wholesome, pipe-smoking family man who reliably anchored beloved holiday classics. Behind the manicured lawns of his estate, however, a chilling reality contradicted the warm studio lighting. Years later, his own flesh and blood dismantled the manufactured charm, exposing a cold, authoritarian dictator. A devastating memoir shattered his pristine branding, detailing a household ruled by fear and merciless control. The legendary performer reportedly enforced ruthless discipline, far removed from his gentle on-screen persona. Accounts detailed severe physical punishment that left lasting trauma, turning his luxury home into a private compound of quiet terror. The public ultimately struggled to reconcile the cherished icon with the tyrannical figure unmasked by his family. The soothing voice that comforted a nation merely drowned out the silent suffering echoing inside his own walls. Number 8. Charlie Chaplin, forced marriage to child star. Globally adored as the silent film era's defining genius, Charlie Chaplin was universally beloved for his endearing on-screen persona. Crowds roared for his signature character, celebrating him as the ultimate lovable underdog. Yet, beneath the iconic bowler hat hid one of the most shocking family secrets in the industry. Studio executives spiraled into panic when the revered star faced imminent legal ruin over a deeply troubling relationship. To evade devastating statutory charges, he orchestrated a secret marriage to his 16-year-old co-star, Lita Gray. Behind the tightly guarded doors of his estate, the laughter abruptly ceased. Leaked court documents stated he subjected the young actress to relentless psychological pressure, allegedly forcing her into an illegal medical procedure to protect his box office dominance. The cinematic icon was suddenly engulfed in a devastating PR crisis, his meticulously curated image fracturing under his illicit maneuvers. The world's greatest comedian built an empire on joy, but his legacy remains haunted by a private reality of silent suffering. Number 7. Gloria Graham, a tragic love affair. Commanding the silver screen as the quintessential film noir femme fatale, Gloria Graham captivated audiences with her smoldering allure and undeniable talent. She secured an Academy Award, cementing her position as a dazzling icon of cinematic sophistication. Flashing cameras documented her glamorous romances, projecting an image of an unstoppable, highly desired leading lady. Yet the seductive tension she projected on celluloid paled in comparison to the hidden life exposed within her own walls. A catastrophic fracture occurred when she was reportedly discovered in an illicit relationship with her husband's teenage stepson. This devastating revelation instantly shattered her marriage, triggering a chaotic PR crisis that permanently shadowed her carefully maintained status. Even more staggering was what followed this destructive cycle of fame. Years later, industry insiders were left speechless when she quietly reunited with and secretly married that very same young man. The dangerous romances defining her career were forever eclipsed by a taboo reality far darker than any script. Number 6. Clark Gable and Loretta Young. The Rejected Child. Reigning over the golden era of cinema, Clark Gable and Loretta Young were the undisputed royalty of the silver screen. They exuded an aura of untouchable elegance, capturing the world's adoration through flawlessly curated personas. Flashing cameras worshipped their every move, portraying them as the epitome of Hollywood perfection. Behind the glamorous studio facades, however, an extraordinary family secret threatened to destroy their bankable reputations. The co-stars engaged in a clandestine romance that resulted in a highly damaging out-of-wedlock pregnancy. Facing a devastating PR crisis, Young vanished from the public eye to secretly give birth, desperately shielding her immaculate branding. In a staggering display of media manipulation, she later returned and staged a highly publicized adoption, presenting her biological daughter to the press as an orphaned child. The legendary leading man, terrified of tarnishing his illustrious image, ruthlessly maintained his silence and never officially acknowledged the girl. The price of their cinematic immortality was paid in the quiet erasure of their own flesh and blood. Number 5. Ingrid Bergman, the exile of Hollywood. Revered as cinematic royalty, Ingrid Bergman embodied an almost saintly purity on the silver screen. Audiences worldwide worshipped her radiant innocence and undeniable talent, projecting an image of an unblemished leading lady. Yet the immaculate pedestal crumbled overnight when a deeply guarded private truth reached the tabloid presses. While still married, she embarked on a clandestine romance with director Roberto Rossellini, culminating in an out-of-wedlock pregnancy that horrified a conservative nation. The devastating PR crisis escalated far beyond studio control, morphing into an unprecedented moral panic. Paparazzi swarmed as the beloved icon faced a vicious public boycott, swiftly transforming from America's sweetheart into a national pariah. The backlash was so merciless that she was formally condemned on the floor of the United States Senate. Stripped of her flawless branding, the disgraced star was effectively exiled from Hollywood for 7 agonizing years. The star-making machine that immortalized her angelic grace proved it could banish her just as ruthlessly the moment the pristine illusion shattered. Number 4. Judy Garland. A nightmare from her biological mother. Enchanting audiences with a radiant smile and an angelic voice, Judy Garland became the ultimate symbol of cinematic innocence following her journey in The Wizard of Oz. Studio executives aggressively marketed her as America's flawless sweetheart, bathing her public image in vibrant Technicolor perfection. Beneath the glowing lights, her reality was a meticulously controlled nightmare, orchestrated by the very people supposed to protect her. From age 10, her mother and industry handlers forced her into a grueling regimen, demanding she consume stimulants to survive brutal 18-hour shifts, followed by sedatives to sleep. The psychological captivity escalated drastically in her 20s, when an unexpected pregnancy threatened her immaculate virginal branding. To protect box office profits, executives and her family mandated a secretive medical termination, erasing the scandal before it leaked. This devastating exploitation permanently fractured her physical and mental health. The Dream Factory engineered a timeless fantasy, but its brightest star was trapped in a reality of lifelong suffering. Number 3. Marlon Brando. The blood curse in the Godfather family. Hailed as the greatest actor in cinematic history, Marlon Brando commanded the screen with unmatched brooding intensity. The legendary patriarch cultivated an aura of absolute power, earning unprecedented wealth and industry reverence. Yet the mafia empires he ruled on celluloid paled in comparison to the crushing curse that consumed his actual dynasty. In 1990, the ironclad gates of his Beverly Hills compound transformed into an active crime scene following a catastrophic altercation. His eldest son fatally shot the partner of Brando's pregnant daughter, Cheyenne, instantly igniting an uncontrollable global media frenzy. Tabloids swarmed the ensuing courtroom battle as the elite family fractured under an immense legal crisis. Christian was condemned to prison, while Cheyenne spiraled into an irreversible psychological collapse. At just 25 years old, she tragically succumbed to her deep mental anguish, leaving the aging Hollywood titan to endure his final years in profound, isolating grief. The undisputed godfather of cinema conquered the world, but his towering legacy remains forever eclipsed by a devastating private tragedy. Number 2. Britney Spears. The tragedy of guardianship and family exploitation. Crowned the undisputed princess of pop, Britney Spears dominated the early 2000s with a radiant allure that rising stars desperately coveted. Fans worshipped her hits, cementing an untouchable empire. However, behind the platinum records, her career was warped into a ruthless money-making machine by her own family. The dazzling illusion fractured in 2008 when a psychological crisis allowed her father, Jamie Spears, to establish a strict conservatorship disguised as parental protection. In a devastating legal maneuver, the idol was stripped of her basic human rights. For 13 grueling years, her handlers monopolized a massive estate, mandating forced performances while controlling her life. Court files later exposed chilling restrictions, revealing legal barriers that prevented her from marrying or removing an IUD to have children. This tragic exploitation collapsed only when the hashtag Free Britney movement finally shattered the industry silence. The world celebrated a flawless pop deity, blind to the agonizing truth of a woman held hostage in her own kingdom. Number 1. Bobby Driscoll. The tragedy of the abandonment of Peter Pan. Immortalized as the boy who never grew up, Bobby Driscoll was the undisputed crown jewel of the early Disney empire. Audiences adored the golden child who breathed life into Peter Pan, securing an unprecedented long-term studio contract. He radiated profitable innocence under the blinding spotlight of mainstream success. Yet the formidable dream factory demanded eternal youth, and natural adolescence became an unforgivable offense. As ordinary skin blemishes emerged, executives ruthlessly discarded him, severing his exclusive agreement with chilling studio silence. Exiled from the only industry he knew, the former prodigy plunged into a destructive cycle of profound depression and dependency. Hollywood entirely blacklisted the talent it once heavily marketed. Far removed from glamorous premieres, his devastating trajectory concluded inside a desolate New York tenement at 31. Unidentified, he was quietly relegated to an unmarked pauper's grave, his tragic fate confirmed to his mother a year later through forgotten fingerprint records. The magical kingdom engineered a timeless fairy tale, casually discarding the real boy the second he dared to age. The true tragedy buried within these Hollywood scandals isn't the lost wealth or fading beauty. It's the quiet erosion of the human soul. The industry demands perfection, rewarding silent suffering while punishing vulnerability. Here at Hollywood Stars and Scars, we expose these archives not to judge the fallen, but to recognize their unheard cries for help. True survival in a toxic ecosystem requires the profound courage to step out of the spotlight before the applause consumes your sanity. The heaviest silence never falls in an empty room. It strikes the second the applause stops and the flashes die. Legends are immortalized on celluloid, while the humans who played them erode in the forgotten margins of history. To decode the media lies and unlock our next classified archive of Hollywood scandals, subscribe to Hollywood Stars and Scars. Refuse to let polished illusions blind you to the chilling reality locked behind those iron studio gates. The marquee may spell their names, but time always reveals their scars.